We will now start the regular press conference by Foreign Minister Hayashi. There are no opening remarks from my side, so I will take your questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and when you're designated, please step up to the microphone and please state your name and affiliation. NHK, Aoki-san. My name is Aoki from NHK. Ukraine Foreign Ministry and Defense Ministry have posted video on SNS. They are expressing gratitude to countries that supported Ukraine, and Japan's name was not included. Foreign Minister, how do you react? And the response of the Japanese government. So far, Japan has been providing various assistance to Ukraine, and on multiple occasions, President Zelensky and officials of the Ukrainian government have expressed their gratitude to us. As of the 25th of April, the Foreign Ministry have posted a Twitter tweet, and they said that they are expressing their gratitude for unwavering support in these hard times, and 30 countries' names were included in this video. Now, this was in the context of weapons assistance. That was the explanation that was provided from the Ukrainian side, that they expressed their gratitude to countries that supported weapons to Ukraine. And Japan has been providing humanitarian, financial assistance, as well as provision of defense equipment. We have been making maximum support to Ukraine, and once again, they have expressed their gratitude to Japan. Next question.
Next question, Asahi Shimbun, Nobira-san. Nobira from Asahi Shimbun. The policy delegation from South Korea, I think you received a courtesy call yesterday, and you also had a working dinner. The President-elect Yoon's view of the relationship between the two countries, I think you discussed about it. And what was your impression after you have met them? And going forward, to resolve issues between Japan and South Korea, what is the position of Japan going forward? Yesterday, in the morning, I received a courtesy visit from the policy delegation of South Korea, and we had a working dinner in the afternoon on the Japan-ROK relations. I mentioned that based on the foundation of the friendly cooperative relationship that was developed between the two countries since the normalization of diplomatic relations in 1965, we have to develop the bilateral relations, and express my expectations for the leadership of President Yoon. And I mentioned that I want to closely cooperate with the new administration to improve bilateral relations. And to this, there was expressions made on the basic position of trying to improve the Japan-ROK relations, and including the issues between the two countries, we had a frank exchange of views. And on top of that, under the new administration of South Korea, we agreed to have close communication between the two countries. So based on such discussions, I would like to move forward with firm communication with the new administration.
Next question, please. Imano-san from Mainichi Newspaper. Imano from Mainichi Newspaper. A related question. Now, at the inauguration ceremony of the new president in the ROK, what is the status of thinking about the possibility of sending a special mission to the inauguration ceremony? What would be the criteria? Now, response of the Japanese government to the inauguration ceremony of the new President Yoon, there has been nothing that has been decided so far. Next question, please.
Next question from Pan Orient News.
Thank you. Azhari Khaldoun, Pan Orient News, Arab News Japan. What is Japan's position toward the countries who either supported Russia or took neutral stance in relation to the Ukrainian issue, such as Belarus, India, Syria, etc.? So did their stance impact their relations with Japan? I mean, is Japan going to take the position that those who are not with us will be considered against us? Thank you.
はい、今年の3月から4月にかけてですね、国連総
From March to April this year, at the emergency meeting of the United Nations General Assembly, there was a resolution against aggression into Ukraine and the resolution of the humanitarian impact of Ukraine and the suspension of Russia from the Human Rights Council. And on that, there were oppositions raised from some countries. And each country has their own situation. And I believe they decide their voting stance based on their own situation. And the bilateral relations, we will take into consideration on comprehensive manners a variety of elements, including the cooperation in international fora. In any event, we believe Russia's invasion must be stopped as soon as possible and have Russian forces withdraw. And for that purpose, I believe it is important that international community, including G7, join their forces together. And we want to persevere in our diplomatic efforts.
Next question, Maeda-san from Kyodo News. Maeda from Kyodo News. I have a question about the visit to Solomon Islands by Parliamentary Vice Minister Uesugi. Today, he met with Prime Minister Sogavare, as was announced earlier. And it was reported that he conveyed Japan's concerns about the security arrangement with China. And was there any explanation provided from the Solomon Islands side? Now, Mr. Uesugi, Parliamentary Vice Minister, who is visiting Solomon Islands, on the 26th, that is today, he made a courtesy call to Prime Minister Sogavare. And in that meeting, based on the traditional friendship relations between Japan and the Solomon Islands, there was discussion about enhancement of the bilateral relations, as well as cooperation in the Pacific Islands region, as well as cooperation on the international fora. There was a frank discussion in person. Also, there was discussion on the security environment in the Pacific Islands region. And there was also discussion about the security cooperation framework agreement between China and the Solomon Islands. Mr. Uesugi said that this agreement could have an impact on the security of the entire Pacific region, and Japan is watching it closely with a sense of concern. And Prime Minister Sogavare said that there is no intention on their part of allowing construction of Chinese military bases. This is based on their existing position of the Solomon Islands. So there was an explanation on the position of the Solomon Islands.
Next, Tanaka-san from Jiji-Tsushin. Tanaka from Jiji-Tsushin. The UNHCR request, based on that, about the transport of supplies to the surrounding countries of Ukraine by using the self-defense forces aircraft. There was an idea of going through India, but India refused that, so the plan was submitted of not transporting through India. What is the reason why India rejected? And by India's refusal, well, at what point in time were you aware of that, and why is it that you continued to discuss about it? About sending the self-defense force aircraft and sending support. Various possibilities of support is now being discussed by the government. At the moment, there's nothing decided about dispatching the self-defense force aircraft. What kind of discussion is taking place between which country is a diplomatic discussion, so I'll refrain from talking about it. About the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, the international community should join our forces. That is important. And we want to work in cooperation with the international community, including G7, and continue to provide support and stand by the neighboring countries for receiving the refugees from Ukraine.
Next question, please. Maeda-san from Kyodo News. Maeda from Kyodo News. It's about San Francisco Peace Treaty. The 28th of this month marks the 70th anniversary of the conclusion or the entry into force of the San Francisco Peace Treaty. Over the past 70 years, what is your assessment as well as your prospects? And Japan opted for separate peace treaty, not including Soviet Union and China. So there are still existing issues with respect to history, territory, and security. What is your assessment? Well, Japan, by accepting the San Francisco Peace Treaty, Japan restored our sovereignty, and Japan made a return to the international community. This treaty is providing the basic framework of post-war order. That is our recognition. After the war, Japan positioned Japan-US alliance as international cooperation as the basis of diplomacy and aiming at peace and prosperity of the region and the international community. Japan has been making contribution to secure common interests of the international community as a whole. The basis of Japan's foreign policy and security, as well as the foundation of peace and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific, is Japan-US alliance. And in order to maintain and enhance that alliance, together with Ambassador Emmanuel, on Saturday last weekend, I visited aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln, spoke with U.S. Navy officials to confirm the importance of the deterrence and response capabilities of the alliance. I intend to closely coordinate between Japan and the U.S. for realization of free and open Indo-Pacific. Next question.
My name is Chu. About the delegation from South Korea yesterday, what exchange of views were made at a meeting yesterday, and about the issues related to the issue of history? There were discussions about the solution to those matters. Yesterday, in the morning, I received a courtesy call by the policy delegation from South Korea, and we had a working dinner in the afternoon about the bilateral relations. I believe that based on the cooperative relationship built between the two countries, ever since normalization of diplomatic relations, it is important to develop the bilateral relations and express my expectations to the leadership of President Yoon. And I mentioned that I want to closely cooperate with the new administration. And there were statements made on the basic position about improving bilateral relations, including the issues between the two countries. We had a frank exchange of views. And based on that, under the new administration of South Korea, we agreed to have close communication between the two countries. So based on such discussions, I hope we can have firm communication with the new administration.
Are there any other questions? If not, then this meeting is brought to a close. Thank you.